Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here is another video for you. I've been pumping them out lately. Hope that you like this one. This is all about the new Olfactive Studio Fragrances. They released 3 floral fragrances in their Sepia range, and they are called Iris Shot, Rose Shot and Violet Shot. I have been so keen to try these since I heard about them earlier this year, quite early on in the year. I'm assuming there was a delay due to Thou Who Shall Not Be Named, but I don't know. But it was certainly expected to be released a lot sooner this year. They're here now. I got my samples from Jovoy London, and this is how they send their samples. I love the way that they send their samples out. You always get glass, atomizer, very generously filled and nicely labelled, and really good prices. The samples I think were about £3 each. If I had gone to the other option, I'm not going to name any names, it would have been £7 for 1 milliliter in a plastic atomizer, and this is glass and you get a lot more, and it was a lot cheaper. So highly recommend Jovoy for sampling niche fragrances, and they have a massive range. Not sponsored at all, just really impressed. I've been impressed with Jovoy since my first order many moons ago. So let's see then. I've got one in there that's not relevant to this particular video. Here they are. I'm jingling them. Shall we do some ASMR? Don't think that really qualifies, does it? So here they are then. We've got Iris Shot, Violet Shot and Rose Shot. I've actually already pre-sprayed 2 of them on my wrists, and I tried them last night as well. So it's not strictly very first impressions, but it's also not based on full wearings of any of these fragrances. So it's just general impressions, very early impressions, shall we say. So we're going to start with, let's do the one that I haven't already sprayed. So the rose one I didn't spray, but I'm going to spray it on skin. I have sprayed this I have sprayed it last night, but I haven't sprayed it since my shower today. So that one, they're all by Dominique Ropion, by the way, master perfumer, the perfumer behind Alien and many of its flankers, the perfumer behind Portrait of a Lady. They are fragrances I really admire, really enjoy. Alien not on me, because it's just too big, it's too loud. However, the flanker Essence Absolue, which is also by Dominique Ropion, I adore. So let's give you the notes then on Rose Shot. I've got them on Fragrantica ready to go. Pink pepper, bergamot and elemi. Elemi, if you don't know, is a woodsy, lemony smell, kind of resinous, but it has a lemony freshness to it. Pink pepper, of course, it would give it a peppery but also kind of like a slightly sweet element. Bergamot, very fresh citrus, sort of lime, orange, lemony type scent. In the mid, there's Turkish rose and white flowers. Base notes are atlas, cedar, oak moss and gaiac wood. So floral heart, sorry, itchy face. Floral heart, but you've got a woody base. You've got oak moss, which would lend it a little bit of a greenness. Gaiac wood, which is a slightly smoky, woody type scent. Cedar is a nice, usually quite a clean, woody note. Sometimes has a slightly fruity facet. I've got some atlas cedar, and it's got an actual fruitiness to it. It's beautiful, actually. So let's have a sniff. Yeah, so it's absolutely a rose fragrance. It's quite a fresh pink kind of rose smell, not a dark gothic one, not a particularly jammy or gourmand. Fresh, uplifting. I guess the pink pepper's giving it that lift, and the elemi and the bergamot giving it a little bit of the freshness as well. Now, how I felt about this once it developed on my skin was that it had slightly metallic element to it, not full on, not too much, but a little bit. It's a cold fragrance, it's not a warm fragrance. This is not an ambery fragrance. I guess I like my roses to be either ambery or quite incensey. I don't mind them gothic. I really love the rose in Portrait of a Lady, backed up by incense and spices. This is not really like any of those. No real obvious spices. Obviously pepper is a spice, but it doesn't feel like a spicy fragrance. It feels like there's geranium in here. Geranium is quite a rosy scent in itself, and it is quite often used in rose competitions. Rose competitions? Rose compositions to help bring more rose or more rosiness, because actually legally with IFRA, if you're IFRA compliant, which I'm certain this company will be, is only a tiny amount of rose you can actually use in a formula. So you have to find ways of making it more rosy, and geranium is an option. I'm not saying they're definitely using geranium here, but it kind of does take me and takes my thoughts in that direction. I feel like there's a bit of geranium and maybe even some rose oxide, which is it's a rosy but also metallic compound. So maybe because it's smelling a bit metallic to me, a little bit though, only a little bit. If you hate metallics, don't be afraid to try this. But I guess what I'm saying is it's just not warm enough for my tastes. So it's a strong, it's a bold scent. You can, it's very rosy. It's got different facets to it. It's not flat, it's not boring. But for my taste, it's not warm enough. Maybe it's not spicy enough, or it's not ambery enough. It's not sweet enough, perhaps. It's not. The sweetness comes from the rose and the citruses, but there's no added sweetness here. Probably a drop of vanilla in there could completely have changed my thoughts on this one. But this is ultimately a rose fragrance. It's very rosy. It's very rosy. But if I wanted a rose soliflor, and I guess you would call it a rose soliflor, I would choose my Elie Saab Essence No. 1. I just prefer that as a richer, more full rose with just this ambery warmth about it. This is much cooler. So that's Rose Shot. And then we are going to go on to Violet Shot, because I've got that pre-sprayed here. And violet is one of my favourite notes in perfumery. This was the one I was most excited to try. I'm going to show you the sample, albeit it's not exactly exciting to look at, but I just like to show you because, no, that says iris. Let's try again, shall we? Oh, it's still in the box. Okay, here we are. Right, so there's the Violet Shot there. So yeah, you can see these samples are really generous. I think they're all about 2 mils, probably a little bit more in some cases. Very generous, Jovoy. Often send extra samples with your order as well, and I really appreciate that. And they're fast shipping, great customer services. Anywho, as I say, not sponsored, just impressed. So let's give you the notes of Violet. Violet Shot. Actually, these fragrances, according to Fragrantica, were released last year, but no one's been able to get hold of them. Not that I know of. I've not seen them. I have been actively looking for quite a long time, so I don't think they have really been available since very recently. Top notes are green grass, Italian mandarin, pink pepper. Middle notes are violet leaf and saffroline. Saffroline is a compound that smells like saffron, and saffron should smell slightly spicy, slightly leathery, has kind of a deep, rich scent. Saffron, if you know the spices, those like little tiny things, very, very expensive, red, and it kind of has, yeah, it's like a rich, spicy, slightly leathery scent. Then you've got Madagascar vanilla, Indonesian patchouli, leaf, and Spanish labdanum. Yeah, okay, so it's this one. This is another very bold scent. The way I like my violets, I do like the Parma violet. I like them to be slightly candied, powdery. I like violet and rose together, violet and vanilla. Violet and woods works really well together because it kind of has a bit of a woody facet. So the violet here is violet leaf. It's two ways, there's two main ingredients for violet perfumery. The violet leaf, which is the green, and it has green and violet facets at the same time. If you know Fahrenheit from Dior, which most of you I would imagine would do, it's a very well-known fragrance, that has a very prominent violet leaf note. So if you pick out the violety green element to Fahrenheit, that's violet leaf. And actually, when I smell this, it reminds me of Fahrenheit. I can actually picture part of this as being part of the Fahrenheit composition. It's really nice. It's not the violet that I usually like, because I actually prefer violet that's made up from the chemical, the ionones. You get ionone A, ionone B, and I think there are other variations as well. It's a chemical compound. It's not, violet isn't something that you can extract from violet flowers, or, to correct myself, you could do, but it's just not worth the effort, the time, the money that it would cost you to do so. I think it's a very arduous process, and you're not going to get much even if you had fields of violets. It's not something that anyone does. Maybe you might find a very tiny artisan perfumer that has managed to somehow extract some violet from the flowers, but in general, in normal perfumery, you're not going to find violet unless it's from ionones or from violet leaf. So in here, I suspect there's both. I suspect there is the ionones, because I get the kind of like the sweeter elements of the violet that I like. But the violet leaf is, as I say, is bringing the greenery with it. I don't smell green grass, so don't be afraid of that note. If you're worried about smelling like grass, it doesn't. There is a really clean woody backbone, and it also smells like there's some powdery iris-like facets, but violet and iris are very closely related, very, very close. So they often get mixed up together, and they often get used in conjunction with each other because they work perfectly. So I think we don't have iris listed. We've got the patchouli and the labdanum, and the vanilla. I can pick out the vanilla while I inhale deeply, and I like that. I like that addition in there. I'm really glad it's there, because it helps. The fact that it's a bit green, which I don't really love, the counteraction of the vanilla helps me like it a lot more. This is a very bold, violet dominant scent. This is a violent violet. This is not a soft, shrinking violet. This is a violet that's kind of life and soul of the party. It's really pretty. I really like the vanilla in here. I'm actually liking this more now I've tried it again than I did last time I tried it. Yeah, it smells a little bit powdery, a little bit vanilla-y, quite a lot of violet, a little bit of the green from the violet leaf. And you can tell there's a bit more depth in the base, which I'm guessing is your labdanum and your patchouli. You can tell there's very good supporting blocks underneath that bold violet element. Really interesting fragrance. I don't think I've really smelled anything quite like it, so highly recommend you check it out if you are a violet lover. And now we're going to move on to the last one, and it's the Iris shot, and this is my favorite. So let's get you the notes. This one has, I did. I thought I forgot my microphone, but I didn't, so yes, yay me. And this one has cassis, cardamom, aldehydes, pink pepper, carrot seeds, iris, almond, Haitian vetiver, Virginia cedar, and ambroxan. So, shall I wave the sample at you? Why not? Oh, there you go. Now you've seen it. I'm gonna. So we've got that's been on there about 15 minutes. I'm just gonna chuck a bit of extra on my back of my hand just to sort of think about the top notes a little bit, because I haven't all these notes, I don't pick out that many of them, but I'm going to try again and see if I get cassis or aldehydes, because I haven't picked up on those at all so far since I've been trying it. It is the second that you spray it, it is blatantly an iris perfume. The closest thing I can think of is Dior Homme Intense. It is that ballpark. Do I smell aldehydes? No. Aldehydes usually lend either quite a fizzy, sharp element, or sometimes they can lend a soapy, creamy feel. If anything, they might be offering a little bit of creaminess, but I would never pick them out at this point. I can pick up the almond actually, and that's the first time I've picked up the almond, and it's in the top note for me at the moment, which is not it's supposed to be a mid note, but I mean you will always pick up various elements of the whole pyramid at any point. So yeah, so the almond is actually a little bit marzipan-like, but don't think this is a full-on gourmand. But I am getting a really nice almond note in here that does remind me a little bit of marzipan, but just not as much sugar. Carrot seeds are kind of musky and earthy scent, almost like the scent of a carrot that's perhaps not had all the dirt washed off of it. Picture a carrot. Picture a carrot. And of course iris, and it's creamy and powdery at the same time. It's a very, very, very finely milled powder, very finely milled, not dusty, not gritty, smooth as flour. There's a sweetness in here. There's no vanilla listed, but my nose, so here we've got slightly more developed fragrance. And my nose picks out the merest hint of vanilla, but that potentially might be confusing things just with the almond. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a tiny drop of vanilla in here, but not a sweet synthetic vanilla, more of a natural vanilla. The cardamom is present, it's noticeable, but it's not bang in your face. You might not necessarily pick up on it. I didn't really think about it without knowing it's there, but when you know it's there, you do get it. This is a very smooth, and really it is an iris soliflor. Even though you've got all these notes, and you can sort of pick out things as you become aware of them, it still feels like it's all about iris, and these notes are just lending you different facets to what iris smells like. And when we talk about iris, we're talking about the root, not the flower. It's the root that has the scent, and it's the root that's used to produce iris. Although the way iris smells, you can totally picture it coming from one of those beautiful flowers. So there's lots of facets to this. just a little bit of sweetness, which just helps me to love it more, because usually iris dominant scents can, as much as I love iris, if it's just all iris, or if it's just all kind of like smooth, powdery, earthy, if there's nothing to oh dear, if it's nothing giving the irisy elements any juxtaposition, I can find it a little boring in the end. But this isn't boring to me. This is beautiful, even though it is very irisy and iris dominant. If I was going to spend my own money, this would be the one. It's definitely on that maybe list at the moment for me. It needs more testing. All of these fragrances are extract in terms of strength. Price is about £190 for 100 mils. I don't think that's too bad for niche. I think they do smaller sizes. I'm not entirely sure. I'd like to think that they would, especially being that they're extract strength. You don't usually need to spray so much, so 13 mils to me would be perfect. You might think that because they are soliflors, they might be good for layering. I don't really think that I would be that tempted to do that, because they're quite complex despite being soliflors. The violet in particular is very multifaceted, very bold. I wouldn't really want to add anything more to it, although what I might consider doing is wearing a very simple vanilla elsewhere. So I might wear a vanilla around here and the iris and the violet on my wrists. Actually, same with all of them, but the one that I'm really not that into is the rose. And it's not that I think it's bad, it's just a bit cold for me. It's a little bit sharp, it's a little bit cold, it has a very, very mild metallic feel. It's kind of dry as well, I think. Is it dry? Yeah, it does feel a bit dry. One of these has ambroxan. Okay, the iris has ambroxan. I'd like to mention that because I am sometimes a bit anti ambroxan and ISO super. I don't really pick it out, so it's not overdone, but ambroxan would fit this scent perfectly. So it's blending in with everything, I would imagine. I haven't really worn it for long enough to see if the ambroxan becomes more noticeable later on. But it's very nicely blended in here so as not to annoy. So if you are anti-ambroxan, don't be afraid of this one either. It just works, the iris. I love that almondy note in there. I can't believe I hadn't picked up on it before, but now I'm like, whoa, almond, it's gorgeous. Really like this one. 100% unisex. If you're someone who's a little bit afraid of florals, I mean, iris isn't really a floral scent anyway, and most of these notes you would find in men's perfumery anyway. So, you know, don't be afraid of the iris. Rose, you have to like rose. Whoever you are, you've got to love rose. And yeah, I don't know really what else to say. It's very rosy in a fresh and sharp and kind of cold way. And then the violet, you've got to love violet. You need to understand it's quite a bold scent, and it's not a very soft, powdery violet that you might be expecting. If you love violet leaf, then this potentially could be right up your street. So that's all of them. Sorry that it's taken me so long to get through them, but you know me, I like to get in depth. So I hope that that was useful, and don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, let me know in the comments if you've tried these or if they sound interesting to you, and I'll see you hopefully in another video.